Good evening. I'd like to call the December 15th, 2020 meeting to order for the Pittsburgh Commission. Please join me in the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This is a special meeting because it's not on a regular night, so we don't do necessarily public inputs, but I see that Pastor Chambers is here if you'd like to come forward.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor, Commissioners. May we pray. Holy Father, we come tonight and during this season of hope, season of peace and joy and love, and we are looking so much for the light that you have to shed for us. And we thank you for this commission and for our city leaders appointed and all the public safety people and all the other people that work for the city for all the wonderful things that they do. Bless us all during this pandemic time. Keep us safe. Help us to do the right thing, be smart, be wise, and bless the decisions that are made tonight here at our commission meeting. And I ask you to let your spirit guide all, and that all will leave tonight in peace and harmony. Father, we lift this prayer to you. Amen.
Thank you, sir.
And a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to all of y'all.
And the same to you. Thank you.
All right, at this point, I would like to invite Nancy Evans to come forward, and if her family wants to join her up here for safety in numbers.
Got her carrying a purse already.
Jim. All right. Well, this is a great day for, well, it's a sad day, but a good day for those of us at Community Health. From the Office of the Mayor, whereas Pittsburgh native and lifetime resident Nancy Evans attended nursing school at Pittsburgh State University, graduating in 1984, and whereas Nancy dedicated her nursing career to ensuring that all individuals in Pittsburgh and the surrounding areas had access to quality health care delivered with compassion, and whereas Nancy worked for Mount Carmel Regional Medical Center and was the first employee of Community Health Center of Southeast Kansas in 2003, and whereas while at Community Health, she was responsible for the startup of the first volunteer dental clinic in the community at Wesley House, was instrumental in the formation of Community Health's immunization program, personally vaccinating thousands of adults and children at flu clinics and through outreach to schools across Southeast Kansas, ensured that thousands of individuals had access to critically needed prescriptions by helping them navigate Medicare Part D, her favorite part, and assistance programs, and led the way when the vaccine to prevent cervical cancer was introduced, taking it to high schools and colleges throughout the area. And whereas Nancy was the first American Academy of Diabetes Educators certified diabetic educator in the region, and worked one-on-one and through group education classes with thousands of diabetics to improve their health, and whereas Nancy is retiring on December 31st, 2020, from a career that led to improved health for all residents in our community. Now, therefore, I, Don McNabb, Mayor of the City of Pittsburgh, Kansas, do hereby proclaim Tuesday, December 15th, 2020, as Nancy Evans Day. Wow. I know, a whole day, but it's at the end of the day. And call upon all citizens to recognize Nancy as we express our sincere appreciation and gratitude in honoring her for her outstanding service to the Pittsburgh community. Sorry, Nancy. Would you like to say? No, she doesn't want to say. But please join me in congratulating Nancy on a wonderful career.
Greatly honored and appreciate this recognition. That was very nice and very unexpected. So Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, moving on, reorganization of the Board of Commissioners. Item A, mayor elected from members of the governing board. Is there a nomination or a motion from the floor for mayor
I'd like to make a motion
to elect?
to elect Chuck Munsell mayor for the next year.
I second that. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay.
I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Kansas,
and the Constitution of the State of Kansas,
and faithfully discharge the duties
and faithfully discharge the duties
of mayor
of mayor
for the city of Pittsburgh, Kansas.
for the city of Pittsburgh, Kansas.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Are you taking the ballots?
Huh?
You took-
Oh, yeah, I'll put
That's
them
fine.
in. All right. I'd like to present, I don't know where it's at. As I was saying, I like to present a ceremonial gavel to outgoing Mayor Dawn McNay and thank her for her dedication, hard work, and the commitment she had the last year for the city of Pittsburgh. Very good job, Dawn. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving on, we need to take a nomination for the next president of the Board of Commissioners, elected by members of the governing body. I make a motion that Cheryl Brooks be appointed or elected to the next president of the Board of City.
I second.
It's been moved and second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Kansas,
and the Constitution of the State of Kansas,
and faithfully discharge the duties
and faithfully discharge the duties
of President of the Board of Commissioners
of President of the Board of Commissioners
for the city of Pittsburgh,
for the city of
Kansas.
Pittsburgh, Kansas.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Moving on to the consent agenda. Are there any items to be removed for discussion? F. F? F. F?
E.
E? Is that it? I ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda excluding item E and F.
So moved. I second.
Roll call vote?
Brooks,
Yes.
Fields,
Yes.
McNay,
Yes.
Munsell,
Yes.
O'Brien.
Yes.
All right, on the consent agenda, we have A, approval of November 24th, 2020 City Commission meetings, minutes. Item B, approval of staff recommendation to designate BMO Harris Bank, Community National Bank, Commerce Bank, Equity Bank, GN Bank, Labette Bank, and Landmark Bank as official city depositories. Item C, approval of staff recommendation to designate the Morning Sun as the official city newspaper. Item D, approval of the 2021 dues to the League of Municipalities in the amount of $9,400 $45.07. Item G, approval of staff request to waive the city purchase policy requirement for formal sealed bids to purchase one new 2021 Ford EcoSport S four-wheel drive for use by the Public Utilities Facility Maintenance Division through the local dealership of Mike Carpino Ford in the amount of $22,500, and to authorize the insurance of the necessary purchase requisition. Item H, approval of change order number 1, reflecting an increase of $13,022.77, making a new contract construction amount of $192,331.14, and final payment in the amount of $44,560.80 to Heckert Construction Company, Inc. of Pittsburgh for the 2020 Service Preservation Project. Item I, approval of final payment to ProSeal, Inc. of El Dorado, Kansas in the amount of $75,727.54 for the 2020 Asphalt Rejuvenation Project. Item J, approval of staff recommendation to accept the consent and acknowledgement of assignments for rights to payments related to Creekside East Housing Development, as representatives of Turnkey Developers, LLC, have assigned their rights to payments received from the Rural Housing Incentive District, as well as infrastructure development costs associated with the agreement from Economic Development Advisory Committee to pay directly to the Bank of Commerce until their loan is satisfied, and authorize the mayor to sign the consent and acknowledgement of assignment documents on behalf of the city. Item K, approval of staff recommendation to reappoint Tom Spurgeon to a third three-year term effective January 1st, 2021 and concluding on December 31st, 2023 to appoint Elizabeth May Smith to an unexpired term effective immediately and concluding on December 31st, 2020 as members of the Land Bank of Trustees. Item L, approval of staff recommendation to reappoint Denise Fitzpatrick and James Triplett to a second two-year term and to appoint Andrew Oyulette, Nancy Scott, and George Weeks to the first two-year terms as members of the Sustainability Advisory Committee, effective January 1st, 2021, and to conclude on December 31st, 2020. Item M, approval of staff recommendation to reappoint Pam Henderson, Mike Luark, Andrea Stefanoni to a second four-year terms as members of the Memorial Auditorium Advisory Board, effective January 1st, 2021, and to conclude on December 31st, 2024. Item N, approval of staff recommendation to appoint Deborah Anthony, Aaron Fletcher, and Leah Gagon to first four-year terms as member of the Active Transportation Advisory Board, effective January 1st, 2021, and concluding on December 31st, 2024. Item O, approval of staff recommendation to appoint Matthew Kazuara to fill an unexpired term as a member of the Airport Advisory Committee, effective immediately and concluding on December 31st, 2022. Item P, approval of staff recommendation to reappoint Paul Chappell, building contractor, Brian Coombs, engineer, Shannon Nicholas, mechanical, to second three-year terms, and to appoint Melissa Bo Richardson, architect, to a first three-year term as members of the Building Code Board of Appeals, Building Trades Review Board, effective January 1st, 2021, and to conclude on December 31st, 2023. Item Q, approval of staff recommendations to reappoint Kyle Michaels to a second three-year term as a member of the Planning Commission Board of Zoning Appeals, effective January 1st, 2021, and concluding on December 31st, 2023. Item R, approval of appropriation ordinance for the period ending December 15th, 2020, subject to the release of HUD expenditures when funds are received. All right, going back to item E, approval of applications submitted by Dollar General Store, number 18856, 820 West 4th Street. Dollar General Stores, number 13065, 204 South Rouse. Dollar General Store, number 3785, 2810 North Broadway. Commodore Barry Corporation, Knights of Columbus, 407 East 11th Street. Aldi, number 89, 3109 North Broadway. Walgreens, number 09049, 1911 North Broadway. Horton's Pizza Plus, 1601 East 4th Street. Main Street Axe Company, 2 license, 1 for consumption, 1 on the premises, and 1 not for consumption on the premises at 216 South Broadway. Pit Stop, 1902 South Joplin. Dillon's, 2600 North Broadway. And Snack Attack, 1101 East 4th Street, to sell cereal malt beverages for the year 2021 and direct the city clerk to issue the license. So, I forget who.
That was me.
Sure.
Ben, I was wondering, is any of these places, have they been in violation of underage selling at all?
No, not that we've ever had any reports on. These are primarily retail establishments.
Okay.
Not bars or drinking establishments.
A lot of times you'll see kids will try to go in and buy with a fake ID, so that's why I was just wondering.
Yes, and periodically the ABC will come and do spot checks. So we don't have any records of these retail establishments having violations for underage drinking or sales to minors.
Okay. I move to approve E.
Is there a second?
Second.
Cheryl moves to approve, Dawn seconded it. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Item F, approval of staff request to use up to $40,000 in funds from the Pittsburgh Public Library building annually to replace the dry sprinkler system at the library.
Mayor, Commissioners, I'm Deb Clarkson, Director of the Pittsburgh Public Library. I'd be happy to try to answer any questions you may have.
Hi, Bev. Mine isn't really a question because I'm pretty familiar with these fire suppression systems. $40,000, and I know a lot of people are watching this at home, but $40,000 is a lot of money. But it's not a lot of money for a fire suppression system. And a dry system is even more money than the wet system. And my point is that we have, that I'm aware of, at least 2 buildings in town that are really good, solid buildings that they're going to need repair. But what's going to happen to them, more than likely, very, very likely, is they're going to get tore down at the citizens' expense. And what's going to cause them to get tore down is the inability to afford the fire suppression system. And I think as a city and as citizens, we need to find a way to do something about this. I'm not saying not doing it. I'm not saying that at all. The fire suppression system is great. There's very little competition with it, and it's very expensive to do. You can spend $100,000, $125,000 real easily in a fairly large building. And so I think the $40,000 is a really good price for a dry system, and I support what you're doing. But I just wanted to bring to people's attention what a price this is, and some really nice historic buildings, at least one, I'm really sure is going to come down at the citizens' expense. That's what's going to happen. So I'm glad it's happening, and I just wanted to bring that up.
I have a question for you, Larry. Why would that be a citizen's expense?
Because what happens is these buildings get turned back into the land bank or whatever, and when you look at the cost, I looked at a building that's a good, solid building. The building itself is solid, and you can buy it at a fair price, but it needs a roof, and a roof's about $70,000. It needs 60 windows, which is about $60,000. Heat and air, plumbing is going to be expensive, but the fire suppression by itself in this one building is $241,000.
Well, my thoughts are on why would that be a citizen's expense?
It's not a citizen's expense to do it because the building, it won't be done. Nobody can afford, will justify that kind of money. So what happens is the building gets tore down at the citizens' expense. It gets turned over to the city, county, it's turned over to the county, and we've had it happen at least 3 times in the last 2 years that I'm aware of. And there's a couple more that's on that road to hell.
Well, my concern is the property owner of the building, if he lets it get in that state of disrepair, that it needs to be tore down, we have an ordinance that says that he must maintain that property. If he doesn't, then the city can tear it down at the citizen's expense and put that on his tax roll.
I'm sorry, I have a question about the actual agenda item.
On what, which was?
The agenda item, I have a question on the agenda item.
Yes, ma'am.
Bev, you want to explain, because I'm not sure everyone understands, the funding for the library, the annuity?
Sure. The annuity actually dates back to when the library renovation occurred in 1997, and that's when the new part of the building was added to the library. And at that time, there were some hairline fractures found in the stone of the stone facade, and the architects were unhappy with that, with the quality of the stone, and the result was that the contractor's insurance company decided to purchase a deferred annuity, and it would provide, at that time, it was $405,000 to replace the stone if needed in 2010, when the annuity matured. In 2010, they examined the stone. There was nothing wrong with it. So at that time, the city commission decided to put that money aside and to use it for any upkeep of the library building, such as this. So this is not technically taxpayer funds, but money set aside to protect the library.
Is there any other questions on this agenda item?
I move to approve.
Second.
It's been moved to approve and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Chuck, we don't have debtor's prison. So if somebody gives up on a building, and they don't pay their taxes, there's nothing you can do about it. The law protects that, and you'll go through 3 years of not paying taxes, and you can't do a thing about it. And during that 3 years, the citizens of Pittsburgh, because you have to make sure the building's secure. And I've seen this building, the city comes down, they put up chain link fence around it, they put up plywood on the windows, and whoever comes along and breaks the windows out and kicks indoors, and it has to be redone again. But since we don't have debtor's prison, and I'm certainly not saying we need them, don't misunderstand that. Sometimes you'd like to, but you have to go through the system, and the law protects them. So you go through 3 years of non-paid taxes, and then the county takes it, and then the county ends up giving it to the city of Pittsburgh. So now you're out 4 years, and you spent money on securing the building, trying to keep people out and varmints out and what have you. And that deteriorates, and it deteriorates the neighborhood of places and buildings and housing that's close to them. And then you end up having to tear them down.
Well, I understand what you're saying, Larry, but hopefully you understand if you own a piece of property and you've made money on that property over the years, and then it gets to a point where you can't maintain it, I don't feel like the citizens should have to bear that cost.
There's nothing that prevents that person. I understand what you're saying, but if they could be sick, they can go bankrupt because some of these old buildings don't pay their way. I've got one not paying its way, but fortunately my wife lets me make the payment. But the law protects them. That's federal. You're not going to be able to change that. And so these buildings get deteriorated, and they get so bad that they have to be secured, they have to be taken care of, and they will end up coming down. But fire suppression is a big piece of it. You can afford a roof. You can afford some things that you can do yourself. But the fire suppression is one item that is really pricey. And I give Bev credit and those that have the money for funding for this, because we got a wonderful library, and that's a good price for fire to repair a fire suppression system.
I think you're right, Larry, that this is an issue that we need to address at maybe one of our study sessions and get it resolved, because we the city wind up paying for a lot of these fire suppression installments. So I think that's when we should come together and brainstorm and see if we can't get something done about that issue.
Just a point, the mayor is an ex officio of the library board, and I just want to give a shout out to Matt Bacon, because I know that we've had several opportunities for Matt to help the library, and Bev speaks very highly of your expertise and your willingness, so thank you, Matt.
All right, and we've proved that, and moving on.
Right.
Consider the following appointments: Memorial Auditorium Advisory Board. Consider staff recommendation to appoint 2 individuals to Memorial Auditorium Advisory Board and 1 individual filling an unexpired term effective immediately and concluding on December 31st, 2022, and the other individual filling a first term effective January 1st, 2021, and concluding on December 31st, 2024.
Good evening. Congratulations, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Commissioners, we have 2 vacancies, and we have 3 individuals that have applied. I've invited them here tonight to talk a little bit about their interest in the advisory board position.
Can I ask you a question before we do that? Is a Memorial Auditorium open to the public?
We are hosting a few small events right now.
Good deal, thank you.
Absolutely. With your permission, I'll invite them up to
Sure.
speak briefly. Cooper, would you like to come forward?
Good evening, my name is Cooper Neal. I'm the band and orchestra teacher at Pittsburgh High School. I've been a part of many different productions with theater at Memorial Auditorium, and the relationship with Memorial goes back a long way. And I'm very interested in thinking creatively about ways that that building can continue to be used, hence my application. Thank you.
Thank you, Cooper.
Seth?
Good evening. Hope I'm tall enough for it to hear me. My name is Seth Harley, and I've been a resident of Pittsburgh for 11 years now. I teach elementary music and theater at Frontenac for the junior high and high school. And the first time I set foot on Memorial Stage was 24 years ago, and I've been doing community theater and ballet productions and a lot of stuff with the community for a long time. So I'm very interested in the building, and I think it's a great facility for this community to have such a great opportunity for the arts in this community. And I'm very interested in finding ways to make sure that it's a viable thing to continue having in our future for all of our community members and everybody. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Seth.
Ginger?
Howdy again. So last time I came and submitted my application, I wore my lucky Star Wars mask. That did not work in my favor last time. So I wore my lucky Nintendo socks. So we'll see how this goes. But I am Ginger Colley. I'm the Director of Sales for the Hampton Inn at the Kansas Crossing Casino. I've been there for 3.5 years, and so I've been making my way up, helping to support the community. I personally have organized and executed over 300 similar groups and events. It's kind of what my role is there at the hotel. So not only that, but I do all of our social media, all of our marketing advertisement, all of our corporate accounts, all of our group stuff, community relations, community volunteering, and everything like that. So I think this is another way to use that skill set to help the community. I'm an avid theater goer, and actually Chris and I have worked together on several different projects and things over the last 3.5 years. So there's that as well. And community-wise, with PCT, I've been in about 3 shows on the tech side and performance. I've been in theater all of my life. I was actually an equity candidate actor in South Florida for about 10 years. So I worked professionally doing that as well, so I understand the creative side of the space, but also the requirements from a business standpoint. And so I think that could really add some value to the events and possibility and flexibility of the space there. And also, I'm writing a new play that maybe we can perform there, I don't know. Working on it for 7 years, so we'll see. But thank you so much for your time tonight, and it was great to see you all again. Congrats, Governor.
Please vote for 2.
Vote for 2. 1.
One in each.
I've got 3 people for.
right, we've selected the top category, Ginger Colley and Cooper Neal. So congratulations, and I think you need a motion and a.
Is there a motion, can we do them both at the same time, or one?
Yes, some of them.
Do what?
You said do them both at once.
Okay, make a motion to appoint Ginger and Cooper Neal to the Memorial Auditorium Advisory Board, and the Ginger, you've been selected for the unexpired term expiring in December 31st, 2020, I take it?
2022.
2022.
2022, yeah, excuse me. And then Cooper, you will, your term will expire 2024. Just to set that straight, so is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
There's been a motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. I'd like to thank you, Cooper, you, Ginger, and you, Seth, for coming forward and showing interest in applying for these boards. Ginger, you said it before, you tried once, you didn't work out too well, but thanks for showing continued interest in being a part of this. And my comment to you, Seth, try again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Consider the following. Item B, appointments, Planning Zoning Board of Zoning Appeals. Consider staff recommendation to appoint one individual to a first term effective January 1st, 2021, and concluding on December 31st, 2023, as a member of the Planning Zoning Board of Appeals and Planning Commission Board of Zoning Appeals.
Yes, we have one opening remaining. We have 5 candidates. Before I have those present come up, I was going to let you know Matthew Kasawara wanted to be here, but he was not able to attend because he's getting ready to travel for the holidays to see his parents, and so he had to go in self-quarantine, so he was not able to be here. But wanted to let you know if it weren't for that, he would definitely be here, and he's very interested. And with that, I'll have the candidates come up and talk about their desire to serve.
Good evening, Commission. Congratulations, Chuck, on being the new mayor instead of Don, it says, but.
I know.
That's all right.
My name is Bob Gilmore. I'm retired. I was a member of I'm a retired plumber. I've been a plumber for over 50 years. And I currently serve on the county's planning and zoning. I have served on the city of Pittsburgh planning and zoning in the past. And for just under 10 years, I worked for the city of Pittsburgh in the building inspection department. So I dealt with the planning and zoning for many years. Before I went to work for the city, I was on the planning and zoning board. So I think I know a lot about the board. And being retired, I'm interested in staying active and keeping my ears to the ground and seeing what's going on. So I figured this would be a good spot to get back onto the board.
Thank you, Bob.
Honorable Mayor, City Commission, I'm Mike Hanica, and I've been in the community for 15 years, and I've been in construction most of my adult life, and currently own my own company of, I do construction estimating and takeoffs, and I also do foam slab lifting, which is, excuse me, my mask is, and my desire to be on the planning commission is just, it kind of relates back to a story where my wife and I first moved here. She's a lifelong Pittsburgh resident, but I was from a larger city, Topeka, and I just wanted to get away, and we moved away for 6 months, and you don't know what you have until you don't have it anymore. And so we moved back about 6 months to a year later, and I want to be part of the community and do my civic service by helping. I think I have the knowledge and creative ability to help the city grow towards the future and for the present as well. So,
Thank you, Mike.
thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners, and congratulations, Chuck and
Thank you.
Cheryl. My name is Tim Bell. I live at 310 Webster. I'd like to thank you all for giving me the opportunity to address you tonight. I'm here seeking consideration for appointment for the Board of Zoning and Appeals Planning Commission. Give you a little bit of history. I moved here over 40 years ago, 1979. Moved down here for the purpose of transferring from Fort Scott Community College to go to PSU. Things happened, went to work for a local contractor, decided I liked that better than going to school, so I stuck with that. And it worked out all right. Stayed in the construction field for many years and building maintenance, and eventually hired on with the city of Pittsburgh in 1999 as building maintenance. Did more building than actual maintenance. Some of the projects that I was kind of proud of was, the renovation of the old commission meeting room. And Chuck, you got to remember that, and Patrick, you probably do too. The Parks and Rec, Lincoln Center, we renovated that, and then also the airport, the Bicknell hangar out there. Just kind of, that was kind of my building experience and getting involved with that. In 2004, I was hired on as a building inspector and then left the city in 2015 as a building official. Served on board of directors for the Heart of America chapter for building officials. Presently, I'm still a member of the HOA, the Heart of America chapter, and also the ICC, the International Code Council. During my time in the building services, I was afforded the opportunity to meet and work with a lot of really nice people who made my job very enjoyable. As you know, most public positions, it's not always glorious, and sometimes a few people aren't so nice. But I've tried to always see their side of the argument, and I like to think of it as a thorough discussion of both sides rather than an argument. Regardless, I felt my job, like yours, was to serve public's best interest, and mine more specifically was concerning fire and life safety. While working in public regarding building permits was most always a discussion with reference to zoning regulations. Building line setbacks, whether it was pertaining to building or zoning district regulations, building line setbacks, accessibility, requirements, parking, signage, proposed building use, or possibly even a variance request or for a particular project, I was most often very much involved in conveying information to the public about zoning regulations and standards and what options may be available if their plans conflicted with those regulations. I believe it's important for the betterment of the community that we have regulations and standards, and that they protect property owners' investments. As an established property owner myself, I want to assure that mine, as well as my neighbor's investment, is protected from conflicts of use that may misalign from my neighborhood or a predetermined model of the neighborhood. As stated earlier, we do need to have options or exceptions to the rule. Every case should be explained in a fair and equitable manner. Consideration for exception should be based on proposed use and the direct effects to the neighborhood and the community as a whole. I feel that I am the right candidate for a position that requires an understanding of code language, ability to comprehend building site plans, provide attention to details, and the ability to make just decisions when revolving challenges or challenging cases and/or unusual circumstances. based on my previous experience as former building inspector, building official, and as private building contractor. All would allow me to contribute to this committee as an informed member and serve in a professional, unbiased manner. I thank you for your time and appreciate your consideration in filling this position. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Tim.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. My name is Martin Dickinson. I'm a lifelong resident of Pittsburgh. Work history includes 13 plus years at McNally Pittsburgh in electrical engineering department and job site construction overseeing. Multiple years, 10 plus years with the city of Pittsburgh. Now I'm a small business owner, vested interest in Pittsburgh. Want to see the city grow, but in a proper manner. I believe I can bring some good value to the board, and appreciate your consideration for this position.
Thank you, Martin.
Martin Dickinson. Got the most votes.
All right. Congratulations, Martin. Is there a motion to appoint?
I make that motion.
There's been a motion and a second. Second? There's a motion and a second to approve Martin Dickerson to the Board of Zoning Appeals and Planning Commission. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Once again, guys, Mike, Tim, Matthew, well, Matthew wasn't here, Martin. Anyway, I just want to tell you guys that all of our boards are very important to us as commission because we take advice and from each and every board. This board to me is very, very important to the city of Pittsburgh. And I just want to say, to me, any one of you guys could have been on that board. Unfortunately, we only had one position to fill because you have a wealth of knowledge and experience that would benefit that board. So all I can say is, hey, reapply next time there's an opening. And thanks for your interest in it. Thank you all. Consider the following. Item C. Request to change zoning. Consider the recommendation of Planning and Commission Board of Zoning Appeals to approve the request submitted by Sherry Mendez to change existing zoning of property located at 102 East 16th Street from R1C Single Family Residence to CP2 Planned General Commercial to allow a parking lot to be reconstructed.
All right, thank you. We had the request, the property here is the first property in yellow right behind the corner of the Mendez's business there. It's outside of 16th Street. They own that property. They have demoed that house. What they're planning on doing with that is after it gets rezoned is to expand their parking lot because their business is being so successful with that. This came before the Planning Commission and it was approved unanimously to recommend that it be rezoned.
Any questions about this?
Move to approve.
Second.
Been moved to approve by Don, seconded by Patrick. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item D, modification to Fire Department Rescue 7 purchase specification. Considering staff recommendation to remove the pump, tank, hose, and all other associated items from the specifications of a new rescue unit and use these funds saved by making this modification to purchase other equipment that will directly support the fire department's rescue capabilities.
Mr. Mayor, congratulations, Commission. Thank you for allowing me some time on the agenda. We're seeking approval to remove the pump and the associated items from the new Rescue 7. We've looked at, laws, regulations. I've talked with the Director of Public Utilities and the Police Department. We feel that we have an alternative means to clean highways that are more in line with best business practices and environmental regulations. We don't see any operational problems removing the pump, and we have identified some equipment that would greatly enhance the fire department's capabilities at rescue incidents. So our intention would be to take the funds saved from the pump, tank, and associated items and use that on the equipment that we've identified as significantly important to us.
Well, I have several questions about this.
Yes, sir.
And I'm just going to read a memo, the background. The primary intent of the pump on a rescue vehicle was to allow fire department to wash down accident scenes. This practice is not keeping with the best business practices of the fire service and raises questions of compliance with current environmental standards and regulation. After consulting with the police chief and the director of public utilities, an alternative method of removing oil, gas, antifreeze, and other roadway hazard has been agreed upon, thus eliminating the need of the pump on this vehicle. What are the other means to do away with the gas, antifreeze, and transmission fluid?
Yeah, the fire apparatus will carry oil dry, and they already carry brooms and shovels. Regulations allow us to dispose of up to 200 pounds of contaminated oil dry from any one incident. Anything that exceeds the 200 pounds, I've talked with the Public Utilities Director, we'll be able to contact them, and they will come out with sand and equipment, and then they can dispose of it in accordance with their regulations.
So they could do that if we didn't remove the pump and firefighting apparatus from this truck. They could still do that.
They could, but smaller spills we would be able to handle ourselves.
Well, my question is, we don't buy fire trucks that often in the city of Pittsburgh because we're a small city. Now, I know large cities can buy numerous pieces of apparatus. What are we going to do with it? I'll continue on with what I want to say, and then I'll ask you about. But when we can't afford to buy a piece of apparatus, we need to get the best bang for our buck. And in my opinion is we need to leave the pump on that truck because we use it several times more than just as a wash down. We use it, and that truck is typically smaller than any piece of apparatus that we have. And we use it in places where we can't get a large piece of apparatus. We use it on dumpster fires in alleyways that we might not be able to reach with a large piece of apparatus. We use it on grass fires. And I worked for the fire department for 25 years. And we didn't have a piece of apparatus like this. We did. We had a squad. But that squad, it got old and replaced it. But this piece of apparatus, I think, with the current one we're going to be replacing, that truck had the ability to fight grass fires, not with only the length of hose that it carried, but that pump could be pumping water as we drove as the fire progressed. So, like I said, did you have a committee that came up with the specs of this truck, and they knew the needs of the citizens of Pittsburgh? And I think we handicap ourselves when we have not that often we can afford to buy a piece of apparatus that we need to be using it as a bunch of different things, not only as a wash down. I think that was, I don't like that it's only used as a wash down, because it's not. It's used on grass fires. It's used on dumpster fires. At a car rescue, if if that gas was to ignite, it would be nice to have a pump that we could fight the fire with. So like I said, the committee that put this together, you know, they felt, to me, they met the needs of what our city size is. We need a piece of apparatus that we can use on a bunch of different things that it's been used on. If we take the pump off, basically you have a truck that's sitting in the apparatus bay that's only used for rescue. And, you know, in larger departments, that's fine, but in larger cities, that's fine. But the city of our size, we need to spend money on something that we can be multi-dimensional, and I just do not agree with this decision.
Yeah, the original committee's request was for a truck without a pump. And through several discussions, they decided to put a pump back onto this truck. So originally they wanted one without. The other thing is that we have a 2017 squad apparatus that is very similar in size, quite capable of filling all those roles that you discussed in terms of dumpster fires and leaf fires. We do not have many running grass fires in this particular city. The last running grass fire that our agency responded to was about a year and a half ago, and it was outside the city limits. As far as motor vehicle accidents, the rescue always responds with an engine in conjunction. So there's always that capability to provide fire suppression and fire support. And in most vehicle accidents, we put extinguishers out and we handle whatever fires come from that with our extinguishers. As I said, the rescue will respond in conjunction with an engine anyhow, because we need that level of staffing at a vehicle accident. So I hope that answers your question, sir.
Not really. But you said we have another piece of apparatus that we use in that instance of where we can't get a large truck in for dumpster fires.
We do.
My thoughts are we always try to have a reserve truck. And so we take the pump off this truck, and the truck that we can use, something happens to it, then we don't have that truck anymore. I just feel that the citizens would be better served to have a truck that is capable of fighting fire in case the other one has a mechanical problem. I don't know where the rest of you are on this, but
we can certainly hold the existing Rescue 7 and move it into a reserve status.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you next. Are we going to keep that truck, or are we going to try to sell it?
The options are available to us, whichever direction we feel is best to move. The current Rescue 7 on the used market probably is not going to generate a tremendous amount of revenue. There's just not, that particular piece of equipment is very unique, and there's just not a very large market to sell that piece. So we could actually keep it in reserve and station it out at number 3. That way, the current brush truck, which is what we have, it is a brush truck, that's stationed out at number 2. The old Rescue 7 could move out to station number 3, and then we would have that as a reserve.
So I hear what you're saying, but I still think the citizens would be better served to have a truck that has a pump and the capability of fighting fire, because we don't buy trucks that often. We can't afford to. So I would make a motion that we go.
I have still questions.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
I was on a roll.
Yeah, you were.
Yes, ma'am.
Are you comfortable with this decision?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd just like to reiterate, the chief inherited these specs. I know he worked back through his organization. One of the reasons we hired him was because he currently has been working in the fire service. He's got some great experience, and I appreciate the comments, but I would hope that we would let the fire chief run the fire department and would support his recommendation. We've been through it.
You asked what the rest of the board thought about this, Chuck. As far as I'm concerned, this proposal is brought to us by people who know more about this department than I do. And as a result, I think that if this is their decision, this is what they need, then I'm in favor of it.
Well, that's why I was against it, because that was their recommendation to have a pump on the truck evidently, and that got changed.
At first, it wasn't on the truck.
But then it was.
Originally it was, and now it was. I've talked with the apparatus committee about this extensively. I've talked with the command staff about this extensively, and I'm very comfortable saying that the staff is in agreement with me and would support this decision.
Well, that's all well and good, and I can understand your conversation with the staff, but to be honest with you, I don't think the staff would say, no, we're not in agreement with you, so whatever your thoughts are, I'm sure that's what they would agree to.
Well, I hope that the staff would be honest with me and offer their honest opinions, and that's the way I've come into this position, and that's the way I intend to lead the department. Certainly, I have the authority to make decisions at some point, but I need honest input from the staff, and that's why I've solicited, or I feel I've solicited that from the staff.
As an ex-employer, my staff never had much trouble telling me I was full of beans.
I've often had that occasion too, sir.
I would make a motion to approve.
Second. There's been a motion and a second to approve. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Same sign, aye. What was that vote count, Tammy?
3-2.
3-2, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chief, I have a comment.
Yes, sir.
I didn't get to say it, so. I think it's wise not to wash this stuff down, put the water, these fuels and chemicals and things to the wastewater that Matt has to handle and the citizens have to put up with. We have a sustainability committee, we have these committees that are very concerned about the environment. And it's a very big piece of everything we're doing as well. And I think to look at other ways to clean this stuff up, and they're out there, and the EPA is gonna make us do that pretty soon anyway. Those things are on the short horizon. So I think it's a good plan to start doing that in other ways than washing it down into the storm sewer.
We'll move forward.
I
with that,
commend that.
absolutely. Thank you.
Item E, allocation of funds, Community Development Block Grant, Coronavirus Response Supplement, CDBG-CV. Consider approving the allocation of funds from the CDB-CV grant program from the Kansas Department of Commerce with the Lord's Diner, Flag Church, and Wesley House, each receiving $11,666 in funding to support programs that provide access to nutritious foods during the COVID-19 crisis, particularly programs supporting children.
Mayor Munsell and Commissioners. At the last commission meeting, we allocated funds for the business portion of this grant. We've since cut checks and have delivered those funds. This is the meals portion of that grant, and at that time I told you I would come back at the next meeting and talk about this. There really are only three good applications of organizations that actually do deliver food in the community. We did get $35,000 for that meals portion of that grant, and all three of these organizations do provide services, food-related services to the community. We just divided the money up equally amongst them and are allocating them equal amounts.
So there was only three?
There were 4 applicants. One of them was not really a food distribution activity, and they were unresponsive.
Do each of these entities serve about the same amount of people?
Oh, it varies dramatically, and the way they go about it varies dramatically as well. Obviously, the Lord's Diner serves meals every night. The Wesley House is more like a food bank, and then the Flag Church has community events where they distribute food, and they work in conjunction with other organizations around the city. So, and they all have had successful track records in delivering food to the community.
CCAP Meals on Wheels wasn't a participant?
There was no application from them.
Are there any further questions for Jay? Entertain a motion to approve.
Second.
Moved by Larry, seconded by Cheryl. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Thank you, Jay. Consider item F, resolution number 1240. Consider approval of resolution number 1240, amending resolution number 1238 dated October 13, 2020, determining that the city of Pittsburgh is considering establishing a rural housing incentive district within the city to include a property annexed into the city following the adoption of resolution number 1238. Go ahead, Clinton.
Congratulations, Mayor.
Thanks.
Commissioners, in October, if you remember, we brought before you Resolution 1238, which established eligible properties for the Rural Housing Incentive District. Shortly after that, we had another parcel, approximately 8.4 acres, annexed into the city. Spoke with a member of the Department of Commerce about the process, if we need to go back through the entire process again to add that one parcel. That gentleman that owns that parcel was interested in getting it in to the Rural Housing Incentive District at the time, but based on timing, we needed to wait. The word back from the Department of Commerce is if we amend the resolution with a new resolution and send them a letter stating that we would like to amend and add, as depicted in here, parcel A15 that's labeled, you can see that, that they would go ahead and approve it without going through the process we had done just before.
Are there any questions for Quentin?
If there's no questions, I move approval.
Been moved by Patrick. Is there a second by Larry? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
Thank you.
Thank you. Consider item G, ordinance number G1317. Consider approval of ordinance number G1317, amending sections 2-102, 2-103, 2-104, and 2-105 of the Pittsburgh City Code to update and streamline the uniform procedures and platting requirements for subdivision, including the pre-platting conference, preliminary plat, final plat, and short form plat.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. This is comes from the Planning Commission. It was recommended unanimously. These were the review changes that the City Commission requested that the Planning Commission take a look at and trying to address some of the concerns that had come up on the platting process. And we want to answer any questions you have.
Are there any questions?
I do. I'd like to see the difference between the two. I noticed you have the changes here, but what they were before. And we're basing the changes on just bringing it up to speed as far, see like what you're doing here. That's not in here, is it, with the red markings?
No.
Okay.
So what's in there is the ordinance to be approved.
Okay. And you're basing the changes on just bringing the terminology to current compared to the paper copies and that type of stuff before? And
Right. Previously, they tried to limit it to, or only have the larger plats come in for a pre-platting conference. Staff would, recommend that we have everyone who wants to come in and do a subdivision to come through and do that to pre-platting conference, try and help get any questions answered quicker and get them through that process a little bit smoother on their end.
So regardless of the size of the development?
Correct.
Okay.
And say, be it 4-lot subdivision or 4,000 lot subdivision. We would still like to have them come in and talk to us before they go through their efforts, so they get a full picture as to what's necessary. And did a lot of the cleanup on having to submit 20 copies, paper copies. Everything's done electronically now. Updating that.
are you able to go through from the first one and just say what was, I see you have the red here, but we're not looking at it here. So are you able to kind of go through and walk us through it?
All right. The pre-platting conference, again, that goes through wanting to have every plat that's to come through to have that, sit down with the staff to go through the process, get them familiar with it. In this, it gave a recommendation as to what they would have if they were to bring a drawing to that meeting. It's not a requirement that they do. We just thought it'd be easier just to clean it up. If they're going to bring something, they're going to bring whatever they're going to bring. There's not a requirement to bring anything at all. They won't bring anything at all. It'll just be a discussion as to what's going on. So we cleaned up, took out all the additional requirements there. The next one for preliminary plat, I looked at changing it to the electronic digital copies. Just cleaned up some language with the layout of streets and general dimensions, appropriate grades. So for most of our area, grades are not that much of an issue out there. If you start getting to more hilly country, that's where you'd be a lot more concerned about cuts and fills. And again, with this, looking at just a preliminary or just an initial layout on that, they'll get into the more defined engineering as they move forward with the project. So it'd be a little premature to have that required at that point in time. Again, with phasing, I say they'll do it within a lot. They'll give us the information. There's nothing there that's holding them to it, so why have it included? So we went ahead and struck that portion of it. And was it for this number 5? This is where we cleaned up or just made it more explicit that folks are able to do a preliminary and a final at the same time.
Excuse me one second. Cheryl,
Yes?
if you look at this thing
don't
here,
have that.
it shows you what he's crossed out.
We don't have that.
No.
I do.
I don't.
The girls don't have it.
Yeah.
Here's a desk over there. Okay.
Sorry.
Understandable
Yeah.
then.
So, could we stop on that number 5 for a minute? Did the planning and zoning talk about, because that's obviously, that kind of is what spurred this whole thing, approving the preliminary and the final at the same time. Was there any discussion by the planning and zoning board on how that looks?
There was not a lot of discussion on that. In that they know that if they don't want to approve, even though they may both be presented, they can approve one and not the preliminary, not the final, or they can decide not to recommend either as well.
So they have, because of the word may, they have the option of doing none, both, or one or the other.
Right. I say regardless of any of the other, they've got that authority to.
I have a question concerning the preliminary and final plat being approved at the same time. A couple of developments that we have going on. We had neighborhoods that had questions about that very thing, the preliminary and the final plat being approved at the same time. They called and voiced their opposition to this. And I just don't, what is a good reason to do them at the same time?
It's done at the request of the developer. If they have a timing a concern on their side in order to get a development moving forward at the speed that they would like to, again, this is all at their request.
For the developer.
Correct.
But my thoughts are, I also like to know and hear from the neighborhoods if they are opposed to anything concerning the development. And if you push the preliminary and final to be accepted at the same time, it is not a benefit to the citizens. And as far as the developer, I mean, is that for planning or their part, try to push it through as quick as possible? I mean, if they're planning on developing something, surely they have a little leeway between the preliminary and the final before it gets down to the end and say, we got to do it now, or we can't do it. It just seems like needs to be better planning on their part. I'd like to see that not happen. I'd like to see the preliminary approved And if there's any questions that anybody has, then they see that they can come and ask them questions on the preliminary. And I'm sure they could on the preliminary and final, but I just feel like we're trying to push something through, and we've seen citizens upset with this action, so I would like to see the time between the preliminary and the final left alone. And what is it now? Is it 10 days or 21 days? What is it?
Right now, at the option of the city commission, they are still able to approve a preliminary and a final at the same time.
I understand that, but what I'm saying is, for the benefit of the neighborhoods that might be opposed to this, it seems like we're pushing something through too fast. And I agree with them. I don't understand why we can't do a preliminary, give it a few days, and then do the final. I don't understand.
If we want to do that, we can pass that,
Okay?
Right.
But that's not this.
Yeah, and we are not the only community. There are quite a number that do it. Looking up Joplin, they've got that option as well, to do the preliminary and final at the same time, as does Sedgwick County, Wichita area. There's quite a number of areas that do have it explicitly written out in there. And many of the communities that say you do one then the other, there's still always that option to do them both at the same time. And there are cases where they are done at the same time, even when they do say that they would like to see the preliminary and then the final come at a different time.
Well,
again, the choice of the city commission, if it comes to you, there's always that option to deny it if you so choose.
Or deny, approve part of it and send part of it back. You don't have to approve both of them when it comes
Basically
here.
already have that.
It's not mandating that it has to happen, it's just giving us, you the option of making it happen if you think you have got enough input on it and you want to move it forward.
Correct.
And the citizens can come to the council meeting as well.
Well, I mean, the way I would envision it is if they did bring it forward together and the citizens came up and said, hey, we've got real issues and we haven't had the due process, which I think was the initial problem that the mayor's referring to, then you guys can redirect it and say, well, you need to get out. Because one thing we've been clear about is you need to go out and meet with the citizens like we did on East Quincy months before you start ripping into their street and tearing things up. And we've learned that lesson. This just gives us the ability to move it forward if it comes down to financing or some other circumstances where it needs to happen and you're all comfortable with it, and so are the citizens.
Or it's it's 2 or 3 lots. I mean, the examples we've been talking about are, multiple lots, but if it's a development with, 4
And
lots.
the citizens did come to a commission meeting both times and voiced their opposition to this preliminary and final being approved at the same time. We heard from them, but unfortunately, we went ahead and approved it anyway. So, I think they felt like they really didn't have a voice in it. They came and voiced their opposition, but we did it anyway. So I just feel like, maybe we should give it a little separation in between.
As we've said, we have the right to not pass that if it comes before us.
Yeah, but we didn't.
So-
We never have.
Well,
But whose fault is that?
Yeah, I mean.
The
But
majority.
in all due respect
That's
too,
it.
we need to know the rules and regulations that are set forth already as far as subdivision rules and regulations, because in July, it was a 3-2 vote against our own rules and regulations, so I'd like to see it separated on final and preliminary,
In July, what did we?
July 28th, for
yeah, but what was-
Creekside East. When we had boys from Deer Run, the people came, and the vote would have been, if you vote to approve, you were voting against your rules and regulations that were already in place, and vote against it was a 3-2 vote.
I say the rules are set up for you to be able to approve both at the same time currently. So
Yeah.
it wasn't against the rules and regs, it was against our usual procedures.
I think,
Is there anything else?
I'd like to make a motion to table it and more information.
I second it.
So specifically, what are you looking for, Cheryl? In terms of more information, what are you looking for?
Well, for one, we need to be more informed on the rules and regulations of the subdivision because there is very little discussion at P&Z. And I do not feel like that it was discussed to a thorough extent.
Okay, so if we bring it back, what are you looking for to bring back? What does Cameron need to do? Is there just
Okay,
more time for
I want to
us
see okay, then I want to see the copy of the reports that you put together to make the decisions that you're doing right now. And I think there needs to be more discussion about it. Because I've been to every P&Z meeting for the past 2.5 years. And during this time when this was all being discussed, there was very little discussion. It was like, you know, that, and they would go through it, but nobody talked about it, the whys and how comes. So, and when it come down to the preliminary and the final plat, I do not believe that you should run them both through at the same time. Because, you know, lack of planning on a developer's part at sometimes to rush it through because weather's coming or otherwise, there is a process and we need to follow it. And I believe that the preliminary needs to come through first, and then, I don't know, right now, off the top of my head, it was, 21 days later, the final. If everything's in place and it's all, you know, proper, and it follows the rules and regulations, I have no problem with going through with it. But, and, you know, as far as cleaning up the wording to bring it up to speed, that I'm okay with, but I'm not okay with the final and the preliminary plat being approved at the same time.
So is tabling it going to change that?
Yeah.
I mean, shouldn't you just take the vote if you're against that? If there's nothing?
Well, I
Cameron
mean,
can
do you
to
want to
change
make it
your mind?
better, or do you want to just run it through like then and then worry about it later? That was what happened in July. We voted for it and we're going to change it later. So why don't we do it the right way the first time and then approve it?
Well, I think it's just a matter of being for it or against it. The opinion of the board was it is better. This is the final version. What you're saying is, well, you don't like that they're separated, but if you can't, there's nothing Cameron can do to unchain. I mean, right now the recommendation is they're separated. So if you don't
Okay.
like it,
Maybe
just vote
it's
no.
because the opinion of the board was nobody said anything at all.
So you
that-
want him go back
so
and have
that's-
another board meeting?
Well, I thought there would be more discussion about it, because frankly, I would like to know that more people have, if you're on that board, you need to know the rules and regulations of subdivisions. So, you know, I know you do, but you have these people, that's the most important board we have.
Do you have any
And I
comment
don't
on
know
why
if-
the board didn't discuss it more?
I don't know if the board, again, I can't make people talk if they don't want to talk.
Oh, I
I'm not going to give them a
understand
quiz to how much they understand or don't understand what's going on through there. All I can do is respond to what questions they had on it. There were the marked up versions that were sent out in the packets, and they were also available that day for anyone that came in. And I can't tell you, I can only speculate, and I don't want to do that.
Well, every board member's not going to be an expert in every piece of this. You've got a plumber, you've got a mechanical engineer, you've got a contractor, you've got an electrician. Now you have an architect, which is going to have more broad knowledge.
That's a separate board.
Okay,
We're talking
separate
about
board, that's
planning and
right.
zoning.
Yeah, that's Board of Trades.
Yeah.
So if we table this, I guess that's just twofold, maybe bringing back the original with the markup so we know it's changed, and two, just really giving people more time to think.
No, more discussion on their part, because
So you're recommending that it goes back to planning and zoning for further discussion?
Yes.
Okay.
So,
So there's a motion on the table?
I mean, that sounds good, but that's not very, I mean, if you're plans and zoning, they're gonna, we need to either direct them, or maybe what I would recommend was, since it already made it up here, and what we're missing is the red line version, which you brought up, because you're like, hey, I'm seeing this for the first time. What if we held it, it's part of the public record, anybody that sees it, that wants to comment on it, just like they didn't do it public at the plans and zoning, can come back to our next meeting in January and say, well, hey, here's my thoughts on it. I don't know that going back to that board is gonna do anything except have them go, why, they need to have a conversation. Why don't we just have that conversation up here in a month? Is that work for you?
Yeah.
And then that way we can get Cheryl the red line version, which I think is a very good suggestion, because, I mean, how do you know it changed if you don't see what was cut out and what words have changed? And is there some critical need to do it today versus in a month?
No, there's not. It was just a desire to get it back before the group. And again, I said we weren't trying to hide what it was. Rather than have 3 different versions that you're voting on, we wanted to have, here's the ordinance, and it was part of the planning and zoning packet.
So if we table this and bring it back, will developers that develop properties in Pittsburgh, will they be at this meeting so we could ask their thoughts on what they might have advice on the preliminary and final being approved at the same time? I'd like to hear from people that have done developments and what they did in the past and what their thoughts for the future is, if that's what we're
Well, you need to be careful, Mayor, because we can't just have a meeting where everybody's in there having a conversation. So
I think it's all about procedure and following the state of Kansas rules and regulations.
what should happen in the next month is for you all to go back to the people that have an issue with it or read the red line and come back as board members with your concerns, and then the 5 of you discuss it. But I mean, otherwise, I don't see there's no mechanism to have just an open meeting by everybody at a town hall meeting.
So it's up to us, we could talk to other developers and see what they think and kind of get a little bit more educated ourselves on.
Yeah, and what would be real helpful is what you give it to staff so they have a chance to have a real discussion with you rather than just you unloading in a month a bunch of information that you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we're here, we're here. We're here. If you want to come into City Hall and sit down with Cameron and walk through what you got at the beginning of January, whenever, let's do that instead of just trying to.
But asking people's opinion is not what I'm talking about.
Right.
It's what, like to get a driver's license, you have to follow the rules. You have to take the driving test, you have to take the written test and go from there. That's what I'm talking about as far as this. So when it gets down to that final and preliminary, I just don't feel like they should be ran through at the same time, and there is rules for that, so.
So really, it boils down to a difference of your interpretation and.
Right, in there, I think the 10 days that you're talking about, that is 10 days for them to have the final plat in advance of the planning commission meeting. It's not 10 days after the approval of the preliminary plat before you can submit. It's only that the planning commission needs to have the final plat in hand 10 days before the meeting date.
During all those meetings ever that I've sat in on, you can tell the guys or the developers who come in who have their ducks in line. You know them. Their paperwork is good. Everything is to the T. Then there's the ones who don't, that look like they're rushing through it. And that's what I'm talking about, is staying true to the rules and regulations, because you get the whole spectrum there. So that's just my thoughts.
Why don't we just?
Well, it seems to me like we have, the issue that you have is not doing the initial and the final together. We already have the legal recourse, so that doesn't happen. The 5 of us do. So what's the difference?
Well, I think just as a courtesy to Madam President of the board, that we should table it for a month, and she should spend some time with staff getting comfortable with this, because it sounds like she has some real questions, or you can just call for the vote today. But I think that's what I'm hearing.
We have a motion on the table.
There's been a motion by Cheryl and a second by me to table it until when? First meeting in January?
Yeah, I mean, that's like 3
It's
or
up
4
to you.
weeks.
Yeah, that's a month.
Yeah.
So all in favor say aye?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. So we will table this till.
So Cheryl, I would encourage you to meet with staff,
Absolutely.
so.
Thank you, Cameron.
And go to Dan.
Thanks, Cameron.
Thank you.
Item H, ordinance number S-1076. Consider approval of ordinance number S-1076, fixing the salary and compensation of the officers and employees of the city of Pittsburgh, Kansas.
Good evening, congratulations, Mayor,
Thank you.
Commissioners. So thank you for supporting our staff and all of the hard work that's being done around the city. In your November meeting, you approved a 2% cost of living adjustment, and we adjusted the salary ordinance accordingly on the minimum and maximum ranges.
So I have a question for you, Henry. Is there any way, there's a section of this ordinance that I am not comfortable with. And I've stated that last year. So is there something that we can amend of this ordinance, or we have to just follow what the ordinance says?
What is the amendment that?
The thing that I'm having trouble with, section C, city manager's authority. Employees' salaries and wages may be increased by the city manager at a reasonable intervals until the maximum amount is reached and may be allowed and paid from time to time. The issue I have with it, we budget for city employees' raises every 2 years. And it's usually a 2% raise. It's a morale issue when employees can receive raises when we don't budget them every 2 years. And I would just like to see that portion removed if that's possible.
I mean, if, you know, you'd have to call for a vote and move to amend that portion, or to delete that portion, or just disapprove the ordinance. And I mean, those are the options that you have when you consider an ordinance.
All right, then I make a motion to remove.
May I say something, please?
Go ahead.
So these intervals that you're talking about, our employees work really hard. Some of them get certifications so that
I'm not talking about that.
But that's what's included in this.
No, that's on down. That's on down.
Not just the incentives. If someone gets a promotion, that doesn't happen at one finite time. And so if people aren't allowed to get any incremental increases or pay increases outside of your approving a cost of living adjustment, that's really going to hurt morale. I have employees coming to talk to me every day because they are underpaid. We need a compensation study to really look at that. We're not competitive in the market. That's making our job difficult to get quality employees and to retain them. The turnover is ramping up right now because people are pretty upset about being paid low. And that's not the city manager's fault. It's just based on our compensation structure. And a salary ordinance, a salary study hasn't been done for 15 years. So we really need to look at those things, please, before you make this motion and recommend it. I'm respectfully asking.
How long did you say it's been since the
15 years.
15 years.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Long time.
And I understand what you're saying, and but it had nothing to do with promotions, being paid for certifications or education. It's for employees that basically are doing the same job, but sometimes they just have their title changed a little bit. So that's my issue. But if we don't remove part of that I would like to remove, that's fine also. I just won't vote for it. That's my choice. But now that you mentioned the salary ordinance, a study, and I'm talking about the low end of the employment scale.
Yes, sir.
Because we have a lot of very capable, knowledgeable, dedicated employees that see what's going on, and they're at the low end. So it is a morale issue with these people at the low end that only get a raise every couple of years. So I am talking for these people. So
am I.
Well, that's fine.
Well, I mean, the city manager is ultimately responsible for recruitment and retention, and we have to provide some leverage, we have to provide some authority to recruit and retain, and it doesn't always come when you hire somebody or, when they're evaluated. So to eliminate this and tie their hands is really a detrimental to us being able to get qualified employees.
I understand, Don.
It takes away an incentive. It takes away an incentive
Well,
for an
I
employee
think
if you
it's-
take it away.
I think since I'm the one being, I mean, the idea that we would change somebody's title and give them more money when they don't take on more duties is ludicrous.
That doesn't happen.
And that's a real, and saying that in a public meeting, after everything that I've done for all of the employees, without a specific example, is unfair to the employees. 'Cause
Well,
it's
this is what
gonna
I've heard
leave
from the
them
employees.
with the idea that that is going on, and that is absolutely what is not going on at the city of Pittsburgh. And I would like to have an example of something like that if you're going to throw it out in a meeting, because we do have employees that have been here for 15 and 20 years that for whatever reason are at the low end of the pay scale, probably because we haven't done a pay study. And we have tried, in every case, every PAF that comes in front of me, we've gone out of our way to find a way to pay them more. So A, removing this would be a huge mistake because you would be back to COLAs. And B, I can't think of one example of an employee that we have ever just given money because we somehow thought that they needed more money.
No,
Everybody
that doesn't
that
happen.
works at the city needs more money, and we've put together a complete new class and pay system in the last 5 years that adds steps so people can move up at whatever level of the organization based on how long they've been here. But the idea that we just hand out raises to people with title changes is not accurate.
You know, we don't have only a retention issue at the bottom of the rung. You can have it at the top of the rung
Sure.
too.
Absolutely.
And that's important to keep them both.
We need more pay. Commissioner Brooks and I had a great conversation at the end of the last meeting, and she kind of nudged me and said, hey, you know, we've got employees, you know, we need to keep them. And I'm like, well, we absolutely need to keep them. But this isn't McDonald's. We don't get to raise the price of a cheeseburger if we want minimum wage goes up. You've got to increase the taxes, or you've got to take something off the table. And I guarantee you, the 300 employees that we have punch above their weight every day and do more than a community this size anywhere in the state and probably across the country. And right now, we're at about a 40% payroll of our overall costs, and that's a lot. And so we were talking about, without putting you in the unfortunate situation of raising taxes, which I know everybody in the community screaming, let's increase property taxes. That was facetious.
heard
That's
that. They haven't called me on that.
We have some real issues, which is why we're trying to grow the town and why we're trying to look at other opportunities to create more wealth, because people need more money, and we are always losing employees from utilities, from streets, from police and fire every day, because they can go to Olathe or somewhere else and get that job and get that more money. And it's tough to do when, I don't ever want to say it, but you know, we're one of the poorer communities in the state of Kansas. Our taxes just generate what they do. And we tried through benefits and quality of life and the purchases of equipment that you all make for the employees and the safety training we give them to keep their costs down. And when they do get a 2% raise, which is every other year if we're lucky, they feel that 2% raise because it's not absorbed by a copay increase or another health insurance increase somewhere else. But we are definitely up against it because we have individuals, and we all know who the employees in this city are, how hard they work. And, you know, in the private sector, they can make a ton more money, and even in some other communities. And so it's a real issue, and we wanted to do the pay study this year, and the pandemic hit, and we put it off. We think it's going to be about $100,000, but it needs to happen because you know, how do you eat an elephant? A bite at a time. We need to start addressing it. But I do think taking away the ability to give people raises as they promote up and get certifications and take on more responsibilities would be going backwards for the organization.
Darren, your comment, labor is 40% of the budget?
It's right there.
Right at it. And see, a lot of private industry, labor is 20% of the budget. You know, so it's a big, big load, labor is.
And Jamie always reminded me, we're personnel. And I'm like, hey, I'm not complaining, man. I'm ready to give everybody a 25% raise right now, but unless you guys are all ready to raise taxes 13%, it's not going to happen. So we've got to do better. We are working on it a lot, but you know, taking out the ability to give people raises during the year, 12 months is a long time, a lot happens. And I think that would be a definite hit on morale.
I make a motion to approve ordinance number S 1076.
I second.
There's been a motion to approve and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle.
An executive session. An executive session is necessary to discuss personal matters of non-elected personnel pursuant to KSA 75-4319B1 to discuss the 2020 evaluation and 2021 employment terms and conditions for the city manager. I'm looking for a motion to recess into executive session for 45 minutes to discuss the 2020 evaluation and 2021 employment terms and conditions
So moved.
for the city manager pursuant to the non-elected personnel exception under KSA 75-4319B1, with the meeting to resume in the commission room in 45 minutes. Patrick's made a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Then a motion by Patrick, second by Larry. We will, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Will we recess for executive session for 45 minutes? Do I need a motion for it?
Yes, for the, next one. We need to close this one that we've got going around.
All right, we're back from recess. on-
Wait a minute. It's not red.
Huh?
Doesn't have the line have to be red?
Red.
Or
It's gotta go
not?
live again.
Okay. Or does it, Henry?
We're good.
Oh, we're good, okay.
Fred, yeah.
All right, we're back from recess, an executive session, and no votes were cast, no decisions were made, but we need an additional 15 minutes for an executive session is necessary to discuss personal matters of non-elected personnel pursuant to KSA 75-4319B1 to discuss the 2020 evaluation, 2020 employment terms and conditions for city manager. Motion to recess an executive session for an additional 15 minutes to discuss the 2020 evaluation and 2021 employment terms and conditions for the city manager pursuant to the non-elected personnel exception under KSA 75-4319B1 with the meeting to resume in the commission room in 15 minutes. Is there a motion for the additional 15 minutes executive session?
Make a motion.
I second. Been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are recessed for an additional 15 minutes executive session.
You got three.
Yeah. That's Darren's fix. My table was wobbly. Yes. Usually it's hot in here, but tonight it's not.
You're fine, sorry.
All right, we're back from recess into executive sessions. No votes were cast, no decisions were made.
Looking for a motion.
Looking
to
for a
adjourn.
motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign.
Candy.
No, we have-
Don't forget your candy.